Hey horror fans, welcome back to Room 237 with a bit of a random found it on Netflix review. And this time I'm doing 47 Meters Down, which came out in 2017. And I remember when this came out, and the real reason why I watched it was because not so much plot wise, but just in my head I thought it was The Shallows, which was another shark trapped survival horror film that came out recently. It actually came out before this. And The Shallows got a lot of praise. And so I was curious about it. It was kind of like The Fog and The Mist. I kind of got mixed up on which was which. Now, it was directed by Johan Roberts. It stars Claire Holt and Mandy Moore as these two sisters. Other than them, you only have like four other cast members, one of which is Matthew Modine, who of course was Private Joker in Full Metal Jacket. I guess he was in Stranger Things, which I know about Stranger Things. I haven't got around to watching it. I just don't have the time to donate to a show, even with it's only got 6 to 10 episodes. Everyone already spoils the twist at the end anyway on social media. Now, the thing about this movie is I do like shark horror films. Obviously, Jaws is the best. Jaws is the granddaddy of them. In fact, everyone that comes out, it always says the best since Jaws, no matter what it is. But now, when I say shark horror films or shark thrillers, I am 100% completely excluding the Sharknado series, any of those sci-fi like Super Shark versus Dinopus or Mecha Shark versus Super Croc or any of that, because those aren't serious films. If they're not already Asylum, they're like Asylum films. They're not meant to be taken seriously, especially Sharknado. They're meant to be these joke fun films. It's kind of stupid to say they suck because that's kind of their appeal. It's kind of like what a Ginger Dead Man is to slasher films. I can see there's something right here. It's driving me nuts. People saying like Ginger Dead Man is like the worst slasher film. Well, it's meant to be a joke film anyway. It's not supposed to be taken seriously. So I'm talking about Jaws and its sequels, good or bad. Open water films, which I only saw the first one in theaters, didn't like it. Deep Blue Sea, this, The Meg, The Shallows, when I do finally get around to seeing it. And this film, I can say I enjoyed. Even though I wanted to see The Shallows, and I ended up seeing this instead. The story is you have these two sisters. They're on vacation down in Mexico. Mandy Moore is going through a breakup. She's the boring sister. Claire Holt is the more exciting, fun-loving one. They get invited out the next day to go in a shark cage. So they do. And they're in the cage. They've had enough. They start to get pulled back up. The winch system goes to shit. And they fall all the way down to the ocean floor, 47 meters down. Which I did the math. It's roughly about 1,874 feet. Roughly around 1,900 feet. That's deep. And if I'm not mistaken, The Shallows is about a girl trapped on a dock with a shark around. They're trapped within the shark cage. And where some people will probably say it's not a horror movie, it's a thriller because barely anything happens. No spoilers, no one really dies. You don't have to have shit like that to be a horror movie. You know, you can have horror movies where nothing happens, and it's all built on I mean, this is one of those horror movies, sort of like Frozen by Adam Green. Okay, trio of friends on a ski lift. It gets turned off when they're up at its peak, and they're stuck there for a week. They're going to be stuck there for a week. It's a matter of how do they get down. You know, most of it is, yeah, them on a ski lift. The threatful elements is the weather, the temperature, lack of food and water, the height, the fall, the razor sharp cables, and the coyotes and wolves down below. This is one of those sort of realistic ones where, and it's not completely realistic, but a scenario that's supposed to put the viewers in that scenario. That's where the horror comes in. And I mean, of course, they're very deep. They're terrified, so their oxygen is going to be running low. They have to find a way to, you know, their radios won't really reach. They have to go up almost 10 meters to get a signal. And the cage is really their only safe zone. So, yeah, even though and that's where the intensity and the suspense comes from. And I'll say it is a suspenseful, intense movie. The cinematography is very well done. It's very atmospheric, which was done by Mark Silk. It was produced by James Harris and Mark Lane. And it's only 85 minutes. It's forgivably short. $5.3 million budget, made 62.5. The sequel, 47 Meters Down Uncaged, came out last year, 2019. Which, tell me that isn't a Jaws-inspired fucking poster. I'm sure they all are in one way or another. Now, a lot of it is kind of like Open Water, which I believe came out 2003 or 4. I saw that in theaters, and it was a very empty theater. But, you know, where that's a couple, you know, tourist divers who get left behind, and they're just kind of floating in the open ocean with sharks around. That movie tries to build a suspense because we don't know when the sharks are going to come up. Eventually, you'll see a tail and a fin. And, yeah, the very minimalist effort for Open Water doesn't really work. But for this, even though the sharks are CGI, we do see the sharks as few and far between as the scenes are. But when the sharks are on the screen, it's intense. I'll give it that. In the cinematography, you really feel the atmosphere. You really feel like, you know, you're stuck down at the ocean floor. Like, there's a part where, you know, they're trying to bide their time with their oxygen for the boat to where Matthew Modine will drop supplies and eventually an extra cable. Either they dropped their flashlight or he dropped one for them. She has to swim out, and I mean, there's this huge trench, and then like a little island that she has to swim to. And when she gets to it to get the flashlight, she can't remember which direction she came from because she looks around and there's nothing but blue. Like, even though they're in a tropical area that's known for its clear water, when you're down that deep, it is dark blue, it's murky. You don't know which way is left and right. So that really worked to the advantage of the suspense. I'm going to get into spoilers here, but I can recommend this. I mean, if you're one of those people who they constantly need shit happening, they constantly need someone getting killed, or some supernatural thing or jump scares, yeah, you're probably not going to like this. At 85 minutes, it takes its time. It uses its atmosphere and its build up for tension and suspense. So when you do get a shark scene, it feels like a jump scare, but it's earned, at least in my opinion. But if you're not a fan of horror films like Open Water, which I don't like Open Water either, The Shallows, which I haven't seen yet, or even ones like, say, Frozen with the ski lift. Nothing happens, it's a thriller. No, it doesn't. I didn't find it scary. That doesn't mean it's not a horror film. Personal opinion doesn't dictate genre. Sorry. It's a battle I've been having through comments. Basically, like there are some scenes that work, that are really, like, there was one point where I was just like, which is, they do eventually drop some oxygen tanks and some flares. They get those. The flares are meant to, I'm guessing, signal for the Coast Guard, but also to ward off sharks. Claire Holt, she gets attacked by a shark. Well, first, they send down a new cable. They start going up and up, but of course the cable snaps. They fall back down. It lands in such a way so that Mandy Moore's leg is outside the cage and pinned under it. So Claire Holt has to, who's already running out of oxygen, has to go get the tanks and come back. She gets attacked by a shark. And so Mandy Moore is kind of left alone. She has to use this thing to throw at the oxygen tank, pull it towards her. And they even say, if you go to the surface too quickly, or if you switch your tanks, you're more susceptible to, I can't believe what it's called, but the nitrogen will cause some sort of hallucinations and psychosis. But eventually, Claire Holt doesn't escape the shark, but she's bleeding badly. Mandy Moore gets out. They meet back up, and she's like, "You're bleeding too much. We just gotta go." So they use their flares, and there's a scene where, and this was where I was just like, "Oh, fuck." They're starting to go up, but they're going too high too fast. They have to stop to let the nitrogen out. And their flares keep going out, so they have to keep lighting new ones, but it takes a minute, so it keeps getting darker and darker. So then when they light one up, you just see these 3 big-ass great whites just looking right at them. And then you have, the fake-out, not really twist, but it's a fake-out that we've seen in these survival films where they get rescued, and then slowly we find out it's like a dream, and then we're back where we were. They keep going up. They make it to the boat, but they're still attacked by a shark. Like Deep Blue Sea, she digs at its eyeball. So while they're laying on the ship, she looks at her hand, and there's a cut on it. And the blood is kind of waving off like she's still underwater. The captain is talking to her, but his voice sounds like a crackly radio. So that's when we get the idea, oh, she's hallucinating. She's still underwater. And I liked that touch, that even though she's up above the surface, the way we find out is her blood is still kind of doing that thing. And, she is still down there. She's cracking up. She's hallucinating. But then the Coast Guard comes. Which I might have missed it, but I'm thinking nitrogen narcosis. and her sister never actually did make it. So it's also kind of like Gravity, where she's talking to George Clooney, who we thought went off to death. He's talking to her and he comes back, but she's just hallucinating. And I would say this probably is one of the better shark films since Jaws. I mean, Deep Blue Sea, yeah, it has CGI that doesn't hold up. It has its moments. I would say I like this more than Deep Blue Sea. I still want to see The Shallows. Still haven't seen The Meg. But, you know, I do like these more suspenseful horror films that build more on suspense. It takes a serious, realistic look. Like, you can put yourself in their positions. Like, okay, if I was trapped at the bottom of the ocean in a shark cage for an indefinite amount of time, but I have a limited amount of time I can be down there with all these sharks around, what would I do? And, you know, all the decisions they make, like, I have to swim up far enough to get signal. I gotta go find a flashlight, gotta go find a harpoon gun. I gotta swim out to get the oxygen tanks. You know, I gotta swim out to find my sister who's talking to me. She's bleeding too much, I gotta get her to the surface. And if this was any other movie that was just like open water, bunch of nothing, bunch of nothing, and then like a flip of a shark tail, then I would say it's a cheap jump scare. But this movie is a constant buildup of suspense and tension that when you get the loud music sting with the shark, it feels earned. So I will say I enjoyed 47 Meters Down. And usually these, I don't watch a lot of these survival horror films or, I guess, nature, environmental horror films, like, where there's the threat of, you know, the elements in the wildlife. But I could say I liked 47 Meters Down. I still want to see The Shallows, but this has been one of my favorite films since I was a young kid. A young kid. I've always loved Jaws. Yes, Jaws is a horror film. Will you ever beat Jaws? Probably not. But it doesn't mean we can't try. And yeah, Sharknado, all the sci-fi, you know, whatever shark versus something else that's stupid. I don't really count those because they're not meant to be taken seriously. They're joke, campy, fun films. But this one I enjoyed. And if you're willing to believe that personal opinion of a film doesn't dictate genre, and that, yes, this is a survival horror film, and you can accept the fact that it is primarily built on suspense and tension, then you might like it. Me personally, I'm only claustrophobic when water's involved. Or if I'm in an awkward position that getting out myself would be bad. You know, I can't really think of an example, but like this. Being stuck in a shark cage way underwater with limited oxygen. That alone is scary. Once you add almost 2,000 feet to the surface and sharks, that's fucking scary. So it is easy to put yourself in their position. But I like 47 Meters Down, so thank you for watching.